Throughout history, power has always tried to silence the weak, but over and over again, the people stood up. They bled, they marched, they died, and they demanded to be heard. This is the entire history of civil rights movements, not just in one country, but the whole world. Let's go. Let's get one thing straight. Civil rights didn't start with fancy speeches or televised protests. Long before human rights were even a concept, people were fighting oppression. In 539 BCE, Cyrus the Great, king of Persia, freed the enslaved people of Babylon. He let them worship freely and return to their homelands. His words were carved in the Cyrus cylinder, what some call the first human rights declaration ever recorded. In ancient Rome, slaves rose up in massive revolts. The most famous? Spartacus, a gladiator who led 100,000 slaves in open rebellion against Rome. Rome crushed them. 6,000 of his men were crucified along the roads as a warning, but that flame of rebellion, it never went out. Fast forward to the 1600s and 1700s, the so-called Age of Enlightenment. Philosophers preached about liberty and natural rights. But let's be real, those rights only applied to white, rich men. When the US declared all men are created equal in 1776, most of those men owned slaves. Meanwhile, halfway across the world, something was about to shake the empires to their core. Haiti, 1791, enslaved Africans rose up and launched the only successful slave revolt in history. Led by Toussaint Louverture, they defeated the French, the British, and the Spanish, three empires, and founded the world's first black republic in 1804. Louverture said, "We are free today because we are the stronger. We will be slaves again when the government is stronger." That terrified colonial powers and inspired the oppressed around the world. The 1800s were all about abolishing slavery, but not ending racism. In Britain, activists like William Wilberforce pushed Parliament to end the slave trade in 1807, and slavery itself in 1833. In the US, abolitionists like Frederick Douglass, a former slave turned orator, shredded the lies of slavery. He said, "Power concedes nothing without a demand." It never did, and it never will. Then came the US Civil War. Slavery ended, on paper, in 1865. But within a decade, the South sank into Jim Crow, a system of racial apartheid backed by violence, lynching, and law. In India, Raja Ram Mohan Roy fought for education, against child marriage, and widow burning. In New Zealand, the Maori resisted British land grabs in the New Zealand Wars. They lost land, but ignited indigenous resistance. The early 20th century? Chaotic, revolutionary, dangerous. Russia, 1917. The Bolsheviks promised equality. Then Stalin delivered terror. India. Gandhi launched his movement of Satyagraha, Truth Force. Millions marched, boycotted, and starved themselves in resistance. Gandhi said, "You may never know what results come of your actions, but if you do nothing, there will be no result." South Africa. The state carved up land and created homelands. Apartheid was loading. The US W.E.B. Du Bois demanded rights, not charity. Harlem was blooming, but the South was burning. Mexico, 1968, student protests ended in the Tlatelolco massacre. Hundreds gunned down by their own government. This era wasn't about compromise, it was about survival. This is the era most people picture when they hear civil rights. And yeah, it was fire. US, 1955. Rosa Parks says no. MLK Jr. leads the Montgomery bus boycott. The March on Washington pulls 250,000 people. King says, "I have a dream," and the FBI calls him a threat. Malcolm X had no illusions. He said, "If you're not ready to die for it, put the word freedom out of your vocabulary." Angela Davis, the Black Panthers. They weren't extreme, they were necessary. South Africa. 1960, police opened fire on peaceful protesters in Sharpeville. 69 dead. Mandela is arrested. for life. France, 1968. Students and workers shut it down. Slogan? Be realistic. Demand the impossible. Australia. Aboriginal people finally counted in the census. In 1967. The doors cracking open. Half of humanity has been silenced for most of history. Women's rights aren't a side issue. They're the core of civil rights. Emmeline Pankhurst is arrested, beaten, force-fed, just for demanding the vote. Sojourner Truth, a former slave, asked, "Ain't I a woman?" Boom. One-line slam sexism and racism. 1949. Simone de Beauvoir writes The Second Sex, 1960s. Betty Friedan drops the feminine mystique. Women rise, demand abortion rights, kick down corporate doors, and still face the glass ceiling. Iran, 1979. Women's rights, erased by revolution. 2022. Mahsa Amini dies in custody. Her crime? Wearing her hijab wrong. Women rise again. Tear off scarves. Shout to the world, woman, life, freedom. Being gay or trans used to mean prison, blackmail, death, Stonewall, 1969, NYC. Cops raid a gay bar, but this time, the people fight back. Bricks fly, windows shatter. The LGBTQ+ movement is born. 1970s. Harvey Milk becomes the first openly gay elected official in California, assassinated a year later. 1980s AIDS crisis. Governments do nothing. People die. And ACT UP fights back with blood, rage, and funerals in the streets. Today, queer people have won rights in many places, but in others, still jailed, tortured, executed. This fight is far from over. Right now, we're in a new era. A digital, global, intersectional resistance. Black Lives Matter began in 2013. George Floyd, 2020. The world watched a murder. The world erupted. Statues fell. Streets filled. A whole generation stood up and said, enough. Me Too exposed predators from boardrooms to Hollywood, Sudan, Hong Kong, Myanmar, Iran, Palestine. People resisting, risking everything. China, over 1 million Uyghurs locked in camps. Uganda, being gay, life in prison. This isn't ancient history. This is today, because at the core of all of it, it's one simple thing: the right to exist. Civil rights aren't handed down by the powerful. They're ripped from their grip by people who refuse to be broken. From Haiti to Harlem, Soweto to Seoul, Cairo to Caracas. This is not just history. This is our present and our future. If you made it this far, thank you. This has been Historium, where history isn't dead. It's the weapon of the brave. So if you believe in truth, in justice, in people power, like the video, share it, and subscribe, because this story is far from over.